The Cessna 152 rattled like a tin can in a hailstorm. Rain lashed against the windscreen, blurring the already hazy view of the practice area below. Inside, 22-year-old Emily, a student pilot with more nerves than experience, gripped the yoke, her knuckles white. Beside her, her instructor, grizzled veteran Captain Mac McIntyre, remained unnervingly calm. "Maintain your heading, Emily," Mac's voice crackled through the headset, a low rumble that barely registered above the engine's roar. "And try to relax. This is just a bit of weather." "Just a bit," Emily muttered, her voice trembling. "This is a full-blown monsoon." She'd been practicing steep turns, a maneuver she'd always found challenging when the weather had turned. One minute the sky was a cheerful blue. The next, a wall of gray had descended, bringing with it a torrent of rain and turbulent winds. "Weather changes quickly up here," Max said, his eyes scanning the instruments. "That's why we always check the forecast and have a plan B." Emily had checked the forecast, but the sudden severity of the storm had caught them off guard. She'd been so focused on her steep turns, she'd barely noticed the darkening sky. "We'll head back to the field," Max said, his tone firm. "Just maintain altitude and heading. I'll handle the radio." Emily nodded, her heart pounding. She knew she had to trust Mac, but her instincts screamed at her to turn back, to escape the storm. She'd always been afraid of flying in bad weather, a fear she'd tried to suppress throughout her training. As they flew, the turbulence worsened. The little Cessna bucked and swayed, thrown about like a leaf in a gale. Emily struggled to maintain control, her arms aching, her forehead slick with sweat. "You're doing fine," Max said, his voice reassuring. "Just stay ahead of the airplane. Don't fight it, work with it." His words, though simple, gave her a sliver of confidence. She focused on the instruments, on the feel of the controls, on the sound of the engine. She tried to anticipate the aircraft's movements, to react before the turbulence threw them off course. The rain intensified, making visibility even worse. Emily could barely see the wingtips. She felt a surge of panic, a desperate urge to give up. "I can't see anything," she said, her voice strained. "Trust your instruments," Mac replied. "That's what they're for." He guided her through the approach, calling out headings and altitudes. Emily followed his instructions blindly, her trust in him absolute. The runway lights, a faint glimmer through the rain, grew closer. The Cessna hit the runway with a jarring thump, the wheels skidding slightly on the wet surface. Emily fought to keep the aircraft straight, her hands trembling. "Smoothly, Emily," Max said. "Keep it straight." They rolled to a stop, the engine sputtering to a halt in the sudden quiet. The rain pounded on the roof of the Cessna, a relentless drumbeat. Emily slumped in her seat, her body shaking. She felt exhausted, drained, but also exhilarated. She'd faced her fear, and she'd come through it. Mac turned to her, a faint smile on his weathered face. "Not bad for your first real storm," he said. Emily managed a weak smile in return. "I never want to do that again," she said. "You will," Max said, his eyes twinkling. "And you'll be better for it." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Flying's not always sunshine and smooth air, Emily. It's about facing challenges, about learning to trust yourself and your abilities. And today, you did just that." Emily looked out at the rain-soaked tarmac, a sense of accomplishment washing over her. She still had a long way to go, but she knew she could handle whatever the sky threw her way. The fear was still there, a knot in her stomach, but it was overshadowed by a newfound confidence. She was a student pilot, and she was learning to fly, one turbulent flight at a time.